All right, as promised, here is part 2 of the course introduction and syllabus videos. So this one is going to focus specifically on syllabus content and the descriptions of assignments. So the syllabus can be found on Sakai. There is a syllabus tab. Everything that I'm going to talk about is outlined on there. I am not actually planning on providing a hard copy in class, although this slide says I am. There is a link in the resources tab of Sakai where you can open up and print off your own copy if you would like a formalized syllabus. However, if everybody wants a copy in class on next Tuesday, utilize that in your comment section as one of the reflections on the course and say, hey, I want a hard copy, and I'm more than happy to bring them in. Anyways, the syllabus talks about attendance expectations, different support services at Kuiper. There's counseling, there's the writing center, library services. Kuiper OneSearch is wonderful. Like I said, librarians are wonderful and they have so much information, so badly want to help. So utilize them as much as you can. Those services are also available to Davenport students as well as the Kuiper students. So utilize them as much as you need to. The syllabus also has assignment descriptions, which I'm going to go over in detail next, as well as the course schedule. So that outlines what days are in seat, what days are online, when breaks are, when assignments are due, what assignments are coming up due, and any time that we might have like a fall break or random things in the schedule, as well as what we're going to learn every day. So there's that. So I'm not going to actually pull up one of them. I'm just going to focus specifically on the assignment descriptions, but feel free to look that over in Sakai and let me know if you have any questions about it. So for assignments, there's 5 categories of assignments that we utilize for the semester: chapter reviews, exams, group project, the final exam, which is like a signature assignment paper where it brings everything all together. And then I also utilize classroom participation and attendance as part of an assignment grade, specifically due to the hybrid nature. There's a lot of independent learning, and so it's a way to kind of hold you accountable to actually doing the work outside of class. All right, so I'm going to move this little screen. There we go. Chapter reviews are 15% of your grade, and so chapter reviews are in place in lieu of doing quizzes on chapters. Not a lot of social work is memorizing content. It's a lot more of being able to write articulate, I cannot even say that word, writing well, and being able to summarize succinctly information. I'm thinking about like case notes. So the intent of the chapter reviews is to have you read the chapter, but also kind of give you a skill set to be able to use in your profession down the road. So chapter reviews are taken from the Hutchinson textbook, The Dimensions of Human Behavior. So every chapter 1 through 9 will have a chapter review. You're going to also use this book in HBSE 2. It's the second part of the book. So we're not actually going through the whole book this semester, but the first 9 chapters, there'll be a chapter review. So what these look like, they're just about a page long, where about 3/4 of the page you're summarizing the content of the chapter, kind of telling me kind of those crispy nuggets of what you've taken from that. And then 1/4 of the page will be kind of a personal reflection on how you see the content applying to your social work practice, social work as a whole, your life as a whole, kind of taking it to that next step of not just telling me, but applying the information as well. So however you want to structure the summary is kind of up to you. You can write in sentence form, paragraph form. I'm also open to you just bullet pointing the information, as long as you're demonstrating that you've read and kind of synthesized the content. So I've had in the past students just bullet point the headings of everything in the chapter. They just put just the heading. That doesn't show me that you actually read the content. It shows me that you've read the headers. So I do reserve the right, if I don't feel like the bullet points are being used appropriately and actually helping your learning, to kind of pull it back and be like, hey, you kind of have to write a summary in narrative form. But that is the option to use bullet points at this time, as long as you are demonstrating that you have read and understood the content. These have to be written in APA style, so the cover page, page numbers, excuse me, you do not have to cite any outside sources. This is not intended to be anything more than just reading the textbook. If you happen to want to apply an outside source, that's great. Then you would actually want to add a citation page, but you don't have to do a citation page for just the textbook. So these are usually due, like, let's say we're going to discuss chapter 4 in class. The chapter review will be due the beginning of the class that day because I want you to have read the chapter prior to us discussing it in class. That way you can be familiar with the content and being able to engage in classroom discussion. The next grading area is exams. So we will have 2 exams during the duration of the semester. It's 25% of your grade. The first exam will be in seat, so you'll take it in class on a Tuesday, October 14th to be exact. It'll cover the first 6 chapters of the book, so that is theories and all of the person dimensions. We will I'll give you the study guide, we'll do some prep in class or online, however it falls on the schedule. And then exam 2 will actually be a take-home exam at the end of the semester. It'll cover the environment dimensions. Again, I'll give you all the study guides and the materials needed and explanations as we get closer to it. But those are what you can expect for exams. It's a mixture of the one in seat will be, there are some multiple choice, short answers, essay questions. Again, I try to make sure assignments are related to a skill that you'll use in the field, and so I try to build that into the exams as well. So you also have a big final paper. This David Pelzer paper is your final exam, and so it's going to take all of the content that we took in class, and you'll utilize the trilogy of books written by Dave Pelzer to serve as your case study. So David Pelzer wrote a trilogy on his life. There's The Child Called It, talking about his early years in childhood. This is he experienced a lot of physical, mental, emotional abuse and neglect, and so the bulk of that is kind of outlined in here. And then the second book is The Lost Boy, talking more about his childhood and adolescent years, kind of building up to adulthood, kind of journey through the foster care system. And then A Man Named Dave kind of journeys with him through his adult life and what that looked like. So the intent is you have a case study now where you'll have learned about an individual from early years all the way to adulthood, and then you'll look at his life and apply the different dimensions of person and environment that we discussed in class. So to keep you accountable and just as a helpful tool, and not having to read all 3 books the night before the exam is due, in November you will have to submit a 1-page reflection of each book. So obviously in chronological order. The 4th will be A Child Called It, the 15th is The Lost Boy, and the 22nd is A Man Named Dave. This 1-page paper is really basic. It's nothing that you need to go like slave over. My suggestion would be to utilize this a way to start kind of keeping track of the different dimensions of the person and environment. And that will help you then be able to incorporate it all into the last paper. Some of this will make a little bit more sense as we start to learn content. Right now, you have no idea what the dimensions are, maybe what I'm even talking about. It'll make more sense as we start to learn the content, and I'll reflect back to this assignment as well, just to kind of remind you of what I'm looking for and what you're going to have to demonstrate that you understood and knew at the end of the semester. So the final exam so you'll turn in those 3 1-page reflection papers. The final exam is to write this 12 to 14 page paper on Dave Pelzer. So the first, I'm looking for an introductory paragraph, just kind of talking about who David Pelzer is, kind of giving some context for his story. And then the main bulk of the paper will be a review of the person, environment, and time dimensions. Not so much the time, because that's kind of hipsy too, but we'll kind of incorporate that a little bit. But then you want to talk about how each dimension was impacted during childhood through adult. So I do want to see some reference to each life stage in the dimensions. It doesn't have to be like overkill, because you could probably write like a 30-page paper on it because there's a lot of content. But at least I want you to demonstrate that you understand how each dimension applied to each stage in his life. My suggestion would be just to do headers of each different dimension, talk about it underneath. The headers are fine, just need to have some consistent flow throughout the paper, and at the end having a conclusion paragraph to summarize the content of the paper. Outside sources are not required outside of the David Pelzer books, which you're going to want to cite if you use any quotes or anything that needs citation. I would also then suggest utilizing your textbook, because you're going to want to explain what each dimension means, and the textbook is going to give you all that because it's what we're learning it from. But outside of that, I'm really not looking for other sources. You're free to use them, but then just make sure you cite them. Needs to be written in APA style. And then one thing that you're going to find in this class and any class that you take from me is I really push you to use the professional writing voice. So when you enter into the social work field, you'll have to write case notes and different types of things. People don't want to actually know your opinion or anything emotional based. You have to be very objective and very clinical in your writing. And so if you're writing about the first book where David Pelzer experienced a lot of abuse at the hand of his mother, you might be tempted to write, I really feel bad for David because of his horrible, awful, rotten, no good mother. Now, while all those things might be true about his mother, it's not necessarily a fact, because there could be somebody else in the world who was like, no, actually his mother was justified in what she was doing. I hope that's none of you, but there could be somebody. And so you just want to make sure that you stay as objective and clinical in your writing and kind of try to move away from having emotionally charged language and opinions in your writing. I'm always pretty good at giving feedback about that. So if you have questions, please let me know if that doesn't make sense. All right, the next main project is you will have a group project in this class. For the past couple years, we've kind of gotten away from group projects because of COVID and some of the limitations with that, but for better or for worse, they are back in business. I know some people love group projects and some people despise them. So regardless of your feelings, you have to do it. So our group project, you're divided into groups of 3 within the class, and each group will have to identify an at-risk or vulnerable population and then focus all of your content around that presentation. So I kind of gave some examples of what that could be, but this is definitely not a comprehensive list. You're not limited to this. You're just going to want to find a group that actually you're able to get all the content required for. So your group will determine the population, and then these are the components of the group project. So you'll have to submit a bibliography where you are citing your top 10 resources that you found to educate people on this group of people. And so they could be scholarly articles, it could be videos, different types of materials. I am asking that you limit your video selections to 1 or 2 items. Again, these have to be good scholarly research or credible sources, not blogs that Joe Blow down the street decided to write about your group. They do have to be credible sources. So you'll pass out your hard copy to the class. Again, APA style, because that's what we love. And then you will need to identify and interview a minimum of 3 agencies or individuals who work with your group or your population in the community. So my suggestion would be to go visit them. Now, COVID does limit some of our ability to go into places, so if an interview has to be conducted over the phone or email, that is fine, but you will need to document these interviews and the content from it. So kind of works out nice. There's 3 people in the group. There's 3 agencies, so you could divide and conquer that way, assign everybody a agency and go from there, or you can have one person do them all. Doesn't matter as long as the group agrees on it. You also have to identify a current study within the past 10 years that identifies and explores your population and kind of present on that. The presentation itself has to be about 55 minutes, a minimum of 55 minutes, and you'll have a PowerPoint, however you want to present all this material, because you also have to explore the different dimensions of the person. You want to keep your audience engaged, you want to be professional, all those fun things. And so we'll go over this a little bit more in class because it's kind of a bigger thing just to include in the video, but that's what we've got. Attendance.